Hello, hello to any replayers. If you're a replayer, don't forget you can still participate. You can tap on the screen for hearts. You can, of course, follow me. If you're not following me, you can share this with others. You can find me on Twitter or Snapchat. I did Barber too, and you can join me live whenever you can. Hi, Sandeepa, how are you? So for everybody that's able, live, thank you. I'm gonna try to use my holder because I have been developing like cramps in my hand. Hi, how are you, Kimmy? Welcome everybody who's joining live, and I'm going to set up my mint because sometimes when I talk about mint, I like to actually look at it. So, welcome to my broadcast. If you're new to me, my name is Joannazarach, and I do a daily money habits broadcast 7 days a week. So I do a daily money habits broadcast because I really believe that you need to pay attention to your money and you need to do it every day. And the more habits you develop, the easier it is for you to keep up with it, to know where your money's going, and to just manage it. Why do I focus on money? Because I do think that money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy a whole lot of things, including freedom. So I encourage people to, on their journey to financial freedom. And I've developed a set of habits myself and a set of systems, and I like to share. So welcome to Mint Monday. On Monday, we always talk about mint. And what I want to talk about today is the why it all matters, right? So I harp on using mint regularly and using it effectively, where I talk about simplifying some things and keeping track of certain things. So besides knowing where your money's going, one of the most critical things that mint can do for you is help you keep track of those expenses that matter at tax time. So I want to focus on two areas today, and I want to talk about, why that's important. So for most people during tax time, what they'll get is a lot of forms, right? So a lot of your tax deductions and tax implied, or sort of things that have implications for your taxes, you will get forms, and there's a timing to do that. And again, it's tax time, so it's pretty appropriate. So what people are doing during tax time is sort of scrambling to gather all this information, gather all the paperwork. Now, there are 2 or 3 things that I find that are really critical that no paperwork comes to you with, right? And so now some of it may have come during the year, right? So people think of tax time and tax documentation as coming to you sort of between the end of January and by April 15th. Depending how complex stuff gets, you may get it later. And so the thing that doesn't come, one of the things that a lot of people do. So if you have obviously if you don't have Schedule A, if you're not doing tax deductions on your tax return, it's probably not as applicable. But if you get in the habit, right? If you get in the habit, it'll set you up for the future. So charitable contributions is one of the things that people miss out on. So if you have a Schedule A, and you've made charitable contributions throughout the year, a lot of times people will miss them because they're not keeping track. Sometimes you'll get a letter from the organization that you donated to, but sometimes you won't. So when you are reviewing your money daily or weekly, however, at a regular interval, you're gonna see that contribution that you made to maybe a friend was fundraising and you chipped in $25 to their goal. And whatever it is, when it's ongoing, you can mark it as charity, right? So then when you are actually reviewing your taxes, you can sort all the charity transactions. Couple areas that people miss and don't even know. If you have children, or even if you don't, and you're a member of a museum, for example, most museums are nonprofits. And so even though admission to a museum is not tax deductible, your membership to that museum is actually tax deductible. Sometimes they'll tell you how much of the tax deduction, how much you get tax deduction. Sometimes it's fully tax deductible. That's one of the things that people don't know. But if you know it, the second, you got to mark it. So when you, even if you're paying by check or by credit card, you've got to know where that money is. This is one of the most important things why I harp on using Mint, because that's where all of your transactions are going to funnel through, your credit cards and your bank transactions, and you can mark them. So charitable contributions is one of the areas that people miss, and it's actually hugely impactful. And again, you only get a tax deduction on charitable contributions if you have a Schedule A, which means you have other deductions that matter. So charitable contributions is one of the areas or one of the types of transactions that you need to keep track of. And then the other part is the other area that I feel very strongly is for people who have businesses. If you have any type of business, obviously if you're a full-time business owner, full-fledged business, you probably have an accountant and you have accounting. You maybe have someone providing those services for you and doing the tracking for you. But a lot of times people are freelancing on the side. They have a side gig. They have other means of income. And if you're reporting it, right, like you're going to get your 1099 form, which means the IRS is going to know that you've made money, you've got to keep track of all the expenditures against that business. And the way I found in Mint that's best is to make a category with the name of your business, because you may have multiple businesses. Like, for example, last week I was sitting down with a couple and they have two, each of them has a freelancing business on top of their full-time jobs. And so you have to allocate those business expenses to that business. That's how the Schedule C works. So what I would encourage people to do if you have your own business is to make up a category. I do it under business services because it kind of like makes sense. I make up a category with the business name. So when you're incurring expenses that are towards that business, you mark them right away, because then you need to take those deductions. Those business deductions are really powerful when it comes to taxation and your tax liability. And you're not just going to be able to do that at the end of the year. First of all, you're going to miss a lot, right? You're either estimated or guesstimating, but you're missing it. You're missing those important deductions. So that would be the other piece. So that's really the today's sort of Mint message, is that when it comes to tax time, those are two areas that people really don't keep track and they miss, and they leave a lot of money on the table, because your accountant, your tax person, they're not a magician. They are only going to utilize the information that you provide for them. So if you don't provide them the information, like here's all my charitable deductions, right? And if all you have is just like some letters that you saved, and again, you've got to have a system. When you have tax forms, I encourage people to just have one folder that just write taxes on them, taxes and year, and throughout the year as the tax forms come in or tax relevant things come in, is to put them in that folder so that they have them for themselves or for their tax person. But you can supplement it when you don't get a piece of paper or you get it electronically, right? When you're getting, maybe you have an electronic folder for it. But what's great is that if it's a financial transaction and you keep it in Mint, then you can sort out and you can even print it out for them to say, look, these are all the charitable contributions I made because you've been marking them charity, right? Or you can even click in Mint, there's an option to click a transaction and mark it tax related. There's like 3 separate categories. So when you go into here, I'll go into a transaction and actually show you guys what I mean by that. Let's see if I can do, okay, here. I don't do it because, but I'll show you what I mean. Here we go. Woo, right. I'm going to try to do this way. Okay. So here is the, so this is my Wunderlist subscription because I have the professional one, and you can say it actually, it's coming up on Mint as business services. Like sometimes Mint takes like a fraction of the name. When you click down on it, you can see that this is Wunderlist. It's actually a German app, so that's why it says Berlin. And you can like do the always rename. I never use this option, but you can see that like my company's called Glean Consulting. So I marked it as Glean Expenses, but here there are tags and you can edit the tags. Especially when I think, yeah, I haven't done that actually, but you can click tax related on here, and that way you can sort all your transaction on tax related. I also encourage people to use notes when you have something that's a little bit ambiguous, when you mark it as a business expense and you won't be able to remember at the end of the year and therefore it's going to make it really hard to categorize it into one of the Schedule C categories, is to write down what it was, right? Like when I have a recurring thing like Wunderlist, then I'm not worried. Okay, so that's kind of the double click. Okay, so that's the that's kind of the idea behind it, right? So that you are keeping track of all your tax related. So you actually can do all tax related transactions. Just mark them. Be very consistent about marking them tax related. And then when you have whatchamacallit, the end of the year, like when you're doing your taxes, you can just pull a tax related report from your Mint. Thank you for the hearts. And so that's really the idea behind it, because the point is not to just know where your money's going, but to actually get leverage out of all the labor that you put into it. And again, when it comes down to it, if you're doing it every day, it's really going to take a couple minutes. It takes me no more than 2 to 5 minutes every single day to go into my Mint transaction and make sure they're all sorted. And big part of it is to make sure I'm catching all those tax related transactions. Because everything else, the only other thing that's really matters, is like you spend what you spend, right? Unless you have like really big disagreements between you and your spouse or maybe your children, and you need to monitor it. The tax related stuff and any fraud, because I have detected fraud multiple times with my Mint account where I go, wait a minute, like this isn't a charge. I've had my American Express used. Like someone, I don't know how they do it, but when I was out of the country, people were buying groceries with it, and immediately, American Express will give you a fraud alert, but you will also see it on your Mint. So that's kind of like where it really impacts, where just aside from information and knowledge, the tax deductions and then fraud are two areas where we really want to utilize Mint to actually save you money. So it translates to actual real dollars. So that's it. That's the message for today. If you're using Mint and you're using consistently, make sure you're marking all your charitable donations, because it'll matter on the Schedule A for your 1040, and your business expenses, because it'll matter for the Schedule C. It not only will make life easier for you and your accountant or tax person or whoever does your taxes. Just do a replay. Just play the replay, really just talking about marking Mint transactions for charitable contributions and your tax deductions, and just to do it consistently. And I can tell you that those 2 to 5 minutes every day that you put on Mint will pay off hugely when it comes to tax time. And so if you're not doing it, if you're like struggling with taxes, this is tax season, so I think it's relevant. Just start doing it. Start doing it so your 2016 taxes, by next year, you're going to have a really good system in place. But you're welcome to catch a replay. It's not a very long scope. And again, I encourage everybody to set up their Mint account. It's free. It's one of the, it's run by Intuit. It's extremely, it's an extremely good tool to use. It's not perfect, but it's one of the best tools that I've seen out there in terms of managing your cash and cash flow. So thanks a lot, and I will see you guys tomorrow, 10 a.m., 7 days a week. I will be on tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central. I'll be on tomorrow. We'll talk about task. I think we're going to continue the financial freedom equation tomorrow on Wednesday. So tune in if you're curious about all the things that go into the financial freedom. We just started with the inputs and outputs. Yeah, thank you. And good to see you on here. And I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your time. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.